Welcome to the Bias Buzz. I'm Don Irvine. He's Brian McNichol. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. National Chocolate Custard Day. You see, I figure, here's the thing. I figure we can't go wrong discussing food and desserts.
I get fat just coming here. I don't even have to eat anything. I love the chocolate custard, man. It's like, so, the inside of eclairs, the chocolate inside. I mean, come on. It's not. We're not going to live to be 200 as a result of these things, but, it's good stuff. I like the custard day. And no one, I looked this one up. Actually, no one knows where this started. No one knows where chocolate custard day started. There's no, they tried, the people who do these days tried to research it. And they're like, this one's been here longer than we can find out about. So it has staying power.
Well, no one can ever complain about a chocolate eclair.
No,
right?
No.
Yeah,
those people are not right.
I just remember as a child, we had a bakery not too far from our house, and we bought lots of chocolate eclairs when I was a kid. And then, bakeries you don't see that many bakeries, not like I did when I was a kid, so they're kind of hard. I mean, you can get those little mini ones, those frozen ones at Costco or Sam's, something like that, which are fine. They're nice bite size, but the bakery stuff, I have to go to Dunkin' Donuts once in a while to get my fill.
And it was like, we had a grocery store that had a bakery. The bakery that served that whole chain of grocery stores was in the back. And, it happened to be the store nearest our house that we used. And, man, just going, oh, my gosh. Everybody would be in there buying stuff just so they could keep smelling the bakery.
The olfactory senses. People smell that stuff. That does mean that they're going to buy more.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. All right, lots of news. We'll start off with the May Day protests that was on Monday. May Day, at least for the time that I can recall during, as I grew up and things like that, traditionally kind of the whole Soviet Union, North Korea, China, the whole military display of...
Yeah, we would study the pictures to see who was sitting nearest Brezhnev and so forth, to see who's gone up or down in the last year,
Right, and then this time around it's turned into a bunch of kind of anti-Trump protests and even got violent.
Yeah, and it's, in Portland, which Portland is a city, they're going to have to do something out there. Even Seattle, they've sort of calmed down a little bit. But in Portland, you have it's a rare mix because you have a lot of progressive West Coast big city types, right? And you have a lot of country boys. A lot of Oregon is rural guys that could fit in Alabama real well, right? And so they are tired of this happening to their town. So where most people they accommodate it or ignore it or stay off that street that day. Portland, their attitude is, let's go down there and beat them up, So, and the city has been inconsistent in how it's dealt with all this. I think some backbones appearing, the thing we talked about where they canceled the parade because the Republican Party had a float in the parade. And the Republican Party always has a float in every parade. Come on, guys. It's like if you had some guy, who was associated with, Richard Spencer or whatever, that would be one thing. But just the fact that there's a GOP in Multnomah County, come on, So I think there's there's overreach is being noticed, and the town, there's some pushback now.
Yeah, and what's the purpose of all these protests? Once again, it's just this anti-Trump, all this venom, a chance for the lefties to come out and do something
and
all
look
around.
Angry and involved.
Yeah, but they still don't have anything. They don't know. I don't think they really know what their purpose is. In the end with that.
When I worked for Tom Davis, he could shut those things down. People come in and just 50 of them angrily shouting. And he would be, okay, I'm straight on what you're against. Now tell me what you're for. And it's then you either have a constructive idea or you spew one more time and leave, right? Because you realize he got you.
Right. Well, they ought to be adopting that more often in terms of that. That would kind of throw them off.
It really works.
All right. Besides May Day protests, then over the weekend we had the White House Correspondents Dinner, which the president did not attend. At the same time, he was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, holding a rally.
Right.
Very interesting evening.
Yeah. The Correspondents Dinner, they had a bad comic who gave a bad show, and people laughed at his jokes against Trump, groaned at his jokes against Hillary, which tells you what you needed to know, what you already knew about those guys. Lightly attended. The ancillary celebrations were all, he can kill this thing. He doesn't go 2 or 3 more years. There will be no White House Correspondents Dinner. Now, it's kind of like this one was kind of like the exhibition football season, where people who would never really get to go see the Redskins play, the season ticket holders is like, well, they make you buy this ticket. So here's 2 tickets. Go enjoy the Redskins, August 24th when it's 100 degrees and the game doesn't count.
Or like when the professional sports leagues go on strike, you've got replacement players or whatever. Who wants to go see those guys?
Right.
It's the B team at best.
So it was the B team. It was a B team comic. It was a B team guest list. I guess they brought Woodward Bernstein up there to, plow back through, 1971, 72. The last time you were doing something that we cared about.
You're right.
But the thing about that is like that set off 2 generations now of reporters thinking that, because what those guys did was they followed a story, and the story got suspiciouser and suspiciouser. It went on down the line, right? And so they ended up with a big story. Okay, but they're even though they're both of those guys are liberals and whatnot. It wasn't a get Nixon. It was like, this is strange, and these things aren't adding up. Okay, but now it's like, you told 2 generations of reporters, you can get these guys. You just stay on them. This Louise Minch or whatever her name is. If I just keep spewing things about Trump and Russia, eventually he won't be president anymore. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Just do your basic reporting. You'll be surprised what is right in front of your face.
Right. I mean, this is where it's not reporting anymore. Now it's what are the most powerful people in the world, in the United States, whatever, can we bring down? How much do we have to do to bring these people down?
Right.
That seems to be a big part of the purpose here now.
Right. And it's not, the readers they want to know the truth.
Right.
If the truth is that the person should be brought down, the person has done something so bad that they got to go, then okay. But it's not, please go assassinate someone's character every day. That's not what the customer's asking for, but that's what they think we want.
Right. I think that's right. All right. We also had yesterday interesting thing with CNN rejected a Trump-Pence campaign ad that was basically about Trump's first 100 days because it contained a graphic photo of journalists that called them fake news, and CNN says, well, the media isn't, we aren't fake news, and therefore, if they remove that graphic, we will run the ad, but as long as that graphic's in there, we won't do it. Thoughts?
Well, now they've come up with some, it may not be, they pulled the ad anyway, right? The Trump people have said, maybe it's not quite legal or it's close to the line and we don't want to be, and I think that's right. Don't even go near the line on this kind of stuff. I don't blame CNN for pushing back on that claim. That's your whole brand, and he has threatened your brand. He's driven down your value, right? So I don't blame him for fighting back. I don't think there's a lot of merit to it, but I think they are fake news. I think he's absolutely right what he has said about them.
Yeah, I mean, I thought my initial thing was that I think that really came a little bit too close to the truth was right there, smacking him in the face, and they're trying to come up with a reason as to why they do this. But I think the end result is that if they had just run the ad, I don't know how many people would have paid attention to it.
Right.
I think the Trump-Pence people, they get a huge amount of benefit by this whole...
Everybody's clicking on it now.
Right. Everybody now wants to see it. There's a big controversy. Everybody's writing about it. Conservatives are hammering away at CNN.
Right.
This would not have happened had they just run the ad and not complained.
Right. And the thing about it is like these guys have still not caught up to the fact that it's not a TV age anymore. It's a digital age. So when you say we're not going to allow this to be on TV, people say they go to the internet and Google it, right? It's like we're right past you, man. We went around you so fast your head swam. You didn't even see us go, right? So don't hide the truth from us anymore. Don't paint pictures that aren't true because we have zillions of people on our side. You have zillions of people on your side who are fact checking every word you say. So, telling us you're not going to run the ad doesn't really make a lot of difference, and probably helped the ad get more views, like you say, and attention.
Yeah, we should have Spencer check the YouTube views. I meant to do that beforehand. We'll have to. I wonder how many views it has now, but probably a lot more than it would have had otherwise.
Yeah.
So, in a way, Trump shouldn't be complaining about CNN, and the censorship. He should say, "Thank you for that, because you just gave me, 500,000 more views or whatever."
That's right.
You did us a huge favor. Okay. Internationally here, we have Venezuela. Just a continual spiral downward. I mean, they raised the minimum wage 60%, as if this is going to help anything in a country where the inflation's running 60% a month, and they're expecting it to go to 2,000% next year. This isn't going to do anything. They're saying, well, maybe we need a new constitution. Well, that's to keep them in power. But I mean, this country's in huge trouble.
It is, and it's hard to see a good ending yet. There's not really a rival leader who can do it, and the rival leaders who've tried in the past were, corralled one way or the other, killed. But it's coming to a head. This is not the Dominican Republic. This is not Haiti. This is a wealthy, established country with civil society with real innards to it, right? and that's not that's being treated like a tin horn dictatorship, but it's not really that. And they have a lot of oil wealth and other kinds of it's always been like a trading post type of place. So at some point someone's going to get involved in this and make it happen. It could be us at some point. We have a president who doesn't mind getting involved elsewhere in the world. It could look to him at some point like a doable deal, like make it all happen in put somebody in there, eliminate the current leadership some which way or other. I don't think we want to go and capture them all and kill them or whatever. But I think that the people of the country are clearly fed up. So you have impetus for change.
Right. I mean, the thing is that Chavez and then now Maduro. I mean, they had the popular support. They had the people, the working class people, and things like that before. When Chavez was around, I mean, oil was booming, and they had their oil economy. Oil's not doing so well, and they have not been able to adjust to that. And so now the working class, they're getting burned badly by these policies. So now even they're rising up, in a socialist system, if you don't have those people behind you, you're in big trouble.
Right. And the thing about the extraction economies, that can lift you. That can be the impetus to lift you out of poverty, but it will not keep you out of poverty, because it is there are a lot of vagaries like the price of oil. You run out. Mining techniques. You could have environmental problems with it. So as you're rising up, you need to not, that wealth needs to go into education and diversifying. It gets you to the dance, but you need to get away from that partner or add other partners once at the dance, right?
Right, and they were so wholly reliant upon it. I mean, I think this is that tunnel vision that many world leaders get. I don't really think it matters whether or not you're socialist or not. It's just that when they build these economies on that one product, they think that's all they need to do. They frequently do, and they don't plan for anything else. That is, as you said, it brings you to the dance. You need to that allows you to develop other parts of your economy and your system, and they don't do it. They kind of get drunk at the party on that whole thing, and then the floor falls out, and then all of a sudden, now what are we going to do? And that's been a huge part of the problem, is that they had no plan B. Everything was reliant upon oil, so now they're in trouble. I'm going to throw this in here too. Now, we've got an interesting thing here with Trump, with Duterte, Kim Jongun, and today he's meeting with a boss.
Yeah.
I can't quite imagine Obama going down this route necessarily, doing all of these kinds of things.
No, Obama would have been too scared. His thing was don't do stupid stuff, right? Trump is not afraid of these people. He's not afraid of he's not afraid of making mistakes, right? He's not, he came out there, all the Democrats all harped on, he said, this is harder than I thought it was. This is hard work. Duh! It's like, okay, he wasn't this before, right? And, rather than just declare yourself right when the whole world knows you're wrong, he says, I was wrong, and he changes his mind, and he's a little more adept at like processing thoughts and not, having to do things in a doctrinaire way. And people look at that as a bad. I think that's a good. I think it's a rapidly changing world, As for these guys, I've always thought that like we made a big deal out of we will not meet with the North Koreans, and I always thought, why? Why not? Well, if they were willing to negotiate, they haven't been unreliable negotiating partners. They've been nutso. That's different than I tell you I'm going to do something, but I cheat, right? Yeah. That's, you're trying to figure out what's next. There's no frame of reference, right? So I think that, sitting him down and saying, making the point to him that, we're not necessarily, all these years y'all been saying we're about to bomb you. We haven't bombed you yet, I mean, we all realize that like Seoul's 30 miles below the DMZ or something.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people get it in the neck if this starts. So, I think that, saying that there's another path out there, what are they thinking in Pyongyang today, right? Right? Okay. The present course of action, all carefully planned, just got a big dent thrown into it, right? Now let's rethink. Same thing with Duterte.
Yeah, I mean the Kim Jong-un thing is just really I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, here we have all this kind of back and forth talking about what Trump says about him and all these things and all the threats going back and forth, and then he comes out and he says, well, he's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
Well, I don't recall any U.S. president ever calling a North Korean dictator a smart cookie or throwing anything remotely complimentary at that regime. But it is an interesting idea. Would Kim Jong-un actually come to the negotiating table? I mean, I'm married to a Korean. I haven't asked her how she would feel about that, but I think there's a lot of tension in South Korea that because of that short border, the DMZ, that and the threat it could easily they could easily get wiped out should North Korea just said, okay, we're just going to launch these missiles. As much as they despise the North Koreans and everything like that, on the other hand, they would like to have a little peace of mind, like, well, can we negotiate our way? Can we trust these guys? Now, I mean, I do recall, Dr. Fred Schwartz says, when he wrote his book, you can trust the communists to be communists, but that was a long time ago too. Yeah. The world has changed. I think even Kim Jong-un, I don't want to give him a whole lot of credit here, but I think he even looks at it and says, well, I know where the advantages and disadvantages are. He's already seeing that Trump is not playing around, right?
That's right. So
this is not like I can go here and just push the West like I have been. There's some pushback. Maybe we ought to sit down.
And also, I think that we were able to sabotage their missile launch. They have to think, our weapons may not be as formidable a threat as we thought they were. They could still they can hit Seoul with artillery. That's different,
right?
Level of engagement there. But he's got, they have to be thinking. And I also think, you have to admit that Trump is probably right, that he probably is a pretty smart cookie, because there was no guarantee. I mean, it went from his grandfather to his father, but there's no guarantee that it was going to go to him. There was a lot of internal discussion and challenge and fighting about whether it would be him. And he pushed those people aside. He got up on top of the mountain and reestablished order in the country, and under some trying circumstances, and seems to have kept it, and seems to have opened the country some and improved the economy some. So you have to give him some credit, and I think that's part of what Trump sees.
Yeah. All right. So since we're on this, I'm going to throw another one in here too, which is just that I noticed as I was looking at this, I hadn't even thought about this because we're so caught up with all these other things happening in France and Great Britain. But South Korea's election for president is coming up on May 9th. So we have a whole bunch of things going on here. So
to replace the woman who was
to replace Park Geun-hye, who was impeached and has been arrested, I guess now, and faces Congress. Don't drop those cough drops, man. But so she's out of the picture. But they have an election coming up, and the leading candidate is a colleague of the previous president, who was liberal, was actually big on the sunshine policy of north-south relations, getting the people back and forth, trying to reunite some of the families on a very limited basis and things like that. So it looks like he's going to win. The conservatives, the people that are kind of anti-North Korea and very more hard line, I don't think they're too far behind at this stage. They sustained a lot of damage because of Park Geun-hye's presidency. But it'll be interesting. I mean, I think that election too, they're going to be looking at it. I think the citizenry there, will be looking to say, what is all of this? There's a lot of stuff happening that generally hasn't happened before. We kind of always have taken the North. We know what goes on over there, but the dynamic may be changing now for them.
Right, and I think on both sides, and I think it's good. What we have done, has gotten us basically to the stalemate we're at now. And before we leave this, you mentioned Abbas. Yes, he is meeting with the president today. There's been a lot of reports that Steve Bannon's influence has waned in the White House. He's on the way out, this and that and the other. There's a lot of evidence to the contrary of that. The education, let's get rid of the school lunch. Right. Let's get rid of the Obama federal involvement in education, K-12 all the way down. That's obviously coming from him, right? That's the kind of things he's there to do. How accommodating Trump is to Abbas and how much he explains to him the rules of the road vis-a-vis Israel will be an indicator to us on the outside where Steve Bannon stands now. If he's strongly pro-Israel and he, reads the riot act to Abbas, then that Steve Bannon's not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah, so this will be an interesting thing to see what we learn from this meeting today. But, just the fact that, he's thinking about bringing these people in, and he is bringing some of these people in, just a very different look, a very different way of operating in the White House than we've seen before. All right, we're still out there. French elections, that's May 7th. From what I've seen, maybe you've seen something different. It looks like the prediction right now is that Macron will get 60% and Le Pen will get roughly 40%. You can't, we don't know until the final votes are in what is going on. But there's a lot of consternation in France about this election because, I think, we've got kind of this establishment versus the real outsider. I mean,
Hillary versus Trump.
Yeah, but and Macron was. He was the finance minister for Hollande before, and there's some baggage there. But a lot of the people who were supporting the conservative candidate, Fillon, and then the Trotskyite Mélenchon, they're not sure where they're going to vote. So a lot of them, what I'm reading, is that they're not going to vote at all because they don't like either one of these candidates, which could throw this vote into who knows what.
Right, and I think it's like closer to 20 points. I think most people in France, I saw the polls, but then I've seen some polls that said it was within a point or two. So, I don't know who's doing the polling, and I don't know who in the world of French polling is
Where's 538 when we need them?
Yeah. I mean, right? who's accurate, right? Who gets it right? And it's hard to know. But she is Trump. She is for nationalism, us first, and we'll take care of everybody else. She's for Frexit. She's for we wouldn't like a lot of what she did. She's, hardliner on. She wants to move France toward Russia, a more cooperative relationship with Russia. She's not a free trader. Even the Trump version of free trade would be beyond her. But I think it's like they're ready for a fresh look. He is campaigning on bringing in more immigrants. And I don't know that one sells right now. I could see, like you say, people being the disgusted people staying home and the people who going, it being a referendum on immigration, if that's the case, she wins.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because she has broken with her father, which is a good thing. I mean, because he was just way out there. But that has upset some people too. That the fact that she's made statements that go against what her father had started and believed in and things like that. This will be a very interesting weekend. When you come down to it, to see how this goes. Will the margin be as large as they say, or will it be much narrower as you have seen some polls? Yeah, because I do not know. And we don't know Europe very well at all. Really, we don't know what constitutes an accurate. Who's really the good pollster in Europe? I don't really know who that is.
Right, and if she wins, how do the defeated take it? What happens in the streets?
Right, exactly. I mean, I think one side of that, one way or the other. If she loses, I think there'll be something. And then if Macron loses, I think you still have something. There's going to be a lot of. Look, I think even the supporters of Mélenchon. I mean, I think they would go out there and protest no matter who won because they didn't like either one of them necessarily. Right. So I think France is ripe for some post-election activity, in the streets, one way or the other.
Yeah, if she wins, then all the people who are concerned that they're, lined up to be thrown out of the country will be in the street.
Right.
It could be an ugly scene.
Right. All right. This one was great. Hillary had a public appearance, an interview with Christine Amanpour, talking about the election. She seems to, she did take responsibility. She said that she was ultimately responsible, but really that was about as far as that statement went. And then she went on to list, the reasons why. Once again, James Comey, WikiLeaks, Russia, all of these, kind of going on and on and on, and she just can't seem to get over that. It's this continual blame game.
Yeah, I had a teacher in college who he said, if there's a but in the middle of a sentence, you can throw out everything before the but. What they really mean comes after the but. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I really like that guy. But. Okay, so that's what this was. Yeah, ultimately it's my fault. But, okay. Now I will say this. I was playing golf when the news broke that Comey had sent the second letter, that they were reopening. And I remember thinking, that's it. She lost. It doesn't matter if this comes to absolutely nothing. It's October 28th. There's not time to repair it. People think we've never gotten to the bottom of this. Anybody who doubted that we were at the bottom of this. Some people were convinced we're not. Some people were convinced we were. But anybody that was in that middle said, okay, there's more here than we know about. Even him coming back a couple of days later and saying we found no additional things that change our mind about whether to charge her, that was too late. That was caught in the noise. So for once, the noise worked our way, So I don't think that's totally false narrative. But I think also, you never went to Wisconsin, you never went to Michigan, you never went to Pennsylvania. Did you not notice that he was going there every day? Did you not notice that he was outworking you, 5 or 6 to 1? Did you not think that was going to matter? Right? Who told you it wasn't going to matter? Who told you that you didn't need to work as hard as him to win? Because these things are exhausting. These campaigns are exhausting. And if you're not into that grind, you shouldn't do it. And she wasn't. She quit. She did, she wasn't drawing good crowds. She didn't really have a lot to say. There were growing, gnawing questions about the fact that she had nothing to say, no way to, no rationale for her candidacy and so forth. And rather than work that problem, she backed out. She limited herself to her public exposure. And, presidential campaign, that's not an option.
Right. And that's the thing, is just that it's fine to take responsibility, ultimate responsibility in that. But she didn't say anything by doing so. Just like, I take responsibility for losing. Okay, fine. And as you said, then she goes with the but, in essence, and then makes this litany of things. Kellyanne Conway fires back at her and said, well, as you said, what about Wisconsin? What about, Pennsylvania? What about these other things? And what about calling the supporters deplorables?
Right.
I mean, I think that had an effect too. I mean, she goes out doing that. I think it was Charles Krauthammer last night. He was saying that he equated that deplorables comment with with Romney's 47%. I mean, I think you can even say the binder's full of those kinds of comments, or George Allen and the macaca moment. You have these kind of seminal little things. And then boom, that is what sticks in people's minds.
Right. And that one is like the not the what was the one you mentioned before, George Allen?
Well, we had 47%. We had binders.
47%. It tells the mistake that you cannot make, which is true of Romney, true of this one, is you cannot say I've written off votes. You must remain an eternal optimist that I will get every single American to vote for me, or I will die trying. Okay. And what she said was, half the people won't vote for me, and they're idiots anyway. So heck with them, right? That's what the deplorables thing was. That's what the 47%. That's exactly what Romney said, right? They're not going to vote for me no matter what I do. Okay, you're not allowed to give up on that. You must still continue to work toward them, right? And he didn't do it, and he lost. And she didn't do it, and she lost. And at the end of the day, he probably had a better chance than she did.
Yeah. The thing, and that, make a really good point with that, though, is that Romney basically, when the Republicans, whether it's Romney or anybody else, when they take that 47% or whatever, and they write them off saying, we can't make inroads, and you look at the Hispanic population and say, we will not get more than 5% of that vote, or we'll not get more than 5% of the black vote, and then so you kind of write those segments off, and the women or whatever, then you will lose, but Trump didn't do that.
But also, it makes you, so you round the curve there.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, these guys are never going to vote for me, then you go from, I'm going to weigh their interests into my decision-making, into heck with them, I don't care about them. And when you start saying you don't care about somebody, then other people say they don't care about them, I mean, it's a shock to people who aren't in that coalition, right? They're just like, wow, I don't, write them off. And her thing is like, why am I not 50 points ahead? Well, because, you're not as dynamic as the other guy. You don't really offer change. People are fed up with what's going on. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, you shouldn't be asking. You should know the answer to that question.
And she's still struggling with that. I mean, to me, I don't know. Is it too audacious for her to say, if I would have been president if the election was on October 27th. I was well on my way to the presidency until.
I don't know that that's true either. I mean, even though I think that was a big, I think that did hurt her some. If you think about it, we're all dialed into the daily machinations of all this.
Right.
The rest of America is like, the campaign is going on, many commercials. Who are these guys in the Congress thing, right? And they're not into the play-by-play the way we are. So to argue that like that spoiled your hope, I think it did turn. I think it did turn some votes, but I mean, you first of all, don't get a server. No, you did the crime for sure.
Right. I mean, and she had the opportunity to put a lot of that stuff behind her early on, and they didn't.
And stonewalled it. It
right,
never would stop coming out.
And so you get it right there at that October surprise type of mentality. You get that as a result of that. This is your own fault, in so many ways, and you have to admit that. So, but one of the other things about this before we leave this is just that she made some mention about you'll have to read about it in my book coming out in the fall. And I about died. I'm sorry.
I haven't read any of your other books. What makes you think we're going to start now?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? I mean, it's the Russians cost me. I mean, what's the title of this book?
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to rehash all these things.
That's another one. It's like, I guess Comey's on the Hill today
right.
talking about
He's testifying
the Russians.
Right now.
But I mean, there's a story that's died. I mean, they'll attempt to whip it back on the track one more time, but people know. That's, the Russians didn't fix the voting booth. What did they do? They retweeted some commercials. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. The other thing we have several things that are big, but this one too, Obamacare repeal. So we've been talking about this really since Trump got elected, since inauguration.
Right. Much more hopefully back then.
Yeah, much more hopefully back then, and Trump, being fairly transparent, just didn't realize how hard it was going to be to get something like this done. He wanted it done in the first 100 days. We're past that point now. We're about 2 days away from recess. and it's questionable whether or not the latest version of this Republican bill has enough votes to get through Congress at this point. But once again, one of the sticking points seems to be the pre-existing conditions, among other things.
Right. So first of all, it does not matter if this one doesn't pass. I mean, they still need to get it right. Okay. And I think what he learned from the first go round is, you're right. He wanted to pass something, and now he's like, okay, don't go down the pass something road because, you end up choking on a bad legislation, things that you don't want just because you're itching to pass something. So he's learned, back away from that. Okay, well, if you'll agree to all these things, Mr. President, then we can pass something now. Okay, so he's learned, I don't want that deal. I want the stuff I want. Okay, so that's one thing. You can see him, it's like the spending thing. He's like, I don't care if we shut down. We need to shut down. Right, his whole way of dealing with them has changed.
Right, so here I agree with this. The thing is that as a voter, as someone who wants to see something happen with this, first of all, I don't like the idea of having government in our healthcare to begin with. But we're going to have government in our healthcare, nevertheless. I think no matter what, it's just to what degree, how much of this goes through. But I don't care if they don't get this done right now because, once you said, get it right.
Get it right.
Get it right,
yeah.
And then you'll be. This is what 1/6 of our economy or something like that. This is a big deal.
It's a big deal, and you're not going to probably get a lot of chances.
This is not like here's
fix
your
it.
checklist and this is a check mark and I'm just going to move on to the next thing. This is a big deal. I'm not going to go Joe Biden, but this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you have to get this right. So don't force this thing down there. Figure out what you need to do on this. And I thought. The Wall Street Journal, I hadn't seen this before, but maybe it's because I haven't read enough about it. Maybe you've seen this. When we talk about pre-existing conditions, and you had mentioned this many times about pre-existing conditions is not insurance.
Right.
And you're 100% right on that. What I saw in the Journal the other day was that for these kind of people, they are also making that same point about that's not insurance. Why isn't there a high-risk pool for people with pre-existing conditions?
Well, that I was going to say, what complicates it is, if you do the high-risk pool, then you're saying, what is the difference between a high-risk pool and single-payer? I don't know.
So that
not
becomes
really, right?
Right.
So I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that that's not the solution, but I'm saying then you're saying the government has a role in paying for people's health coverage, right? And then it's just an argument over who all should be under the umbrella, right? Which we end up, in England, NHS, as horrible as it is. You realize, the biggest 3 employers in the world. Do you know what they are? Red Army of China, the Grand Trunk Railroad, and National Health Service, which serves 65 million people. We have 320 million people. So we could have, in theory, 5 times what they have, working for the government, which is already 20 trillion in debt, right? So, we can't be that. Single payer, only in Bernie Sanders' fervid imagination does that make sense, right? So they have to come up with some way where it's insurance. Now, what they talked about, what's in this latest one is if you ever get on insurance, okay, then you don't, as long as you're not getting onto new insurance, then they can't raise your prices. As long as you're still on the policy you were on, they can't do these dramatic jumps in price. Okay, that's, to me, that doesn't strike me as unfair because it's not, the insurance company took the bet at this price, okay? Just because that's not a good bet does not necessarily let the insurance company go back and recoup its losses, right? You agreed to the bet here, so this is the bet. So you lost this time, but you're going to lose. You're in insurance. You're going to lose some, right? You're not going to.
I was wondering this morning, and maybe there were other comparisons to this before, but for whatever reason, it didn't pop into my head until today. It's just that, not that it's necessarily comparable, but most of us have auto insurance. In Maryland, you have to have auto insurance in theory.
Virginia too.
Right. So, in auto insurance, you're rated based on the risk. If you're a good driver, you get rewarded with lower premiums. If you're a bad driver, you pay more. And if the insurance company says we're not going to insure you at all, at least in Maryland, there's a risk pool for those people that are just horrible drivers.
Right.
But I was thinking this morning, like, what if this kind of thing, this cancer of you have to have these pre-existing conditions, spreads to the auto industry and says you have to insure everybody, but you can't take into consideration their
Whether
tickets
they
and
smoke, drink, whatever,
any of these other things for driving that they do now. That just seems like a disaster.
Yeah. You can't make them take bad bets.
Yeah.
You can make them honor the bets they willfully entered into.
Right.
But you can't make them take bad bets on behalf of the country.
Yeah. So it'll be
so
interesting.
it's not done. It'll they'll come back around, and there are people working on it that are smarter than us that understand this stuff, and but there's no rush to do it, and it's not a giant failure. And the Post keeps saying, well, if this one fails, then there can never be Obamacare reform. They will just have to give up for the entirety of Trump's presidency. It's like, no, they will not have to give up for the entirety. In fact, there's a good chance they'll have a better chance at it after the 2018 election, right? Because you'll have a Senate. You could well have 60 votes in the Senate. Pass whatever you want.
Right. I want to say I'm very disappointed with you because I really thought we were the two smartest men in the world, but
they're smarter on this area.
Okay. All right. Clarification.
God help us if we have to go study this stuff.
Actually, if we were really that smart, we wouldn't be sitting here. The spending bill, so the budget bill. So, who wins? Who won this battle? Democrats or Republicans, or a little of both?
Everybody won. There's no shutdown. There's no, he can't even govern. He can't even keep the government open. What an idiot, right? So the argument goes away till September. It increases Republicans' will to fight for what's right because, some of their priorities were honored. There was, increased spending for border security, not a wall. I don't see what the I think we want the border guarded. I don't know that a physical wall anyone ever, if you read the stuff from the stories from his speech in Harrisburg, the Post had a thing, reactions from people in the crowd. And they're like, no, we don't care that whether there's a pile of bricks, 17 feet high. We care that these guys can't get in the country without going through proper channels. Right, and they're working on that, and the money they gave them goes a long way toward, electronic surveillance of the border, which is probably, given the tunneling and the other stuff that goes on there, that's probably the way to go anyway. Because, Molly Ivins used to say, show me a 50-foot wall, I'll show you a 51-foot rope.
Yeah.
So I mean, the way to do it is to get it where it's monitored from coast to coast, or from California to bottom of Texas, or whatever it is.
What about building a trench and then filling it with cement like about 25 feet down? Will that slow the tunneling down? We start there and we'll work our way up. If we get to the surface and then we say, all right, we can now start slowly building the wall up. I don't know, just a thought.
But I mean, that's what you're trying to catch people sneaking to do something.
Right.
A wall is one thing, but there are other ways to catch people sneaking to do stuff.
Right.
But general spending levels. I mean, it's a punt. The Democrats can claim some victories. They're temporary victories. It comes up again in September when we will have vetted at least most of the 12 appropriations bills. I think we're going to get real appropriations bills this year, not a continuing resolution, not an omnibus. So I could see that, this ended up being, and this also gives him some room to deal on some things with Democrats, because he gave a lot of stuff away to Democrats on this. So, it could be that, this is down payment on some really good stuff.
Yeah, and my general feeling, too, was that, Trump, he threw down the gauntlet with this, what he wanted to do with budgets, EPA and all these different things. These were large. I mean, he just threw out these big, large numbers, big cuts. I don't think anybody in their right mind really thought, anybody who knows anything, thought that would actually happen immediately. But it's, it's percolating in the back of people's minds. Okay, we get this, we're good till September. In the meantime, we buy ourselves a little more time to really go through here and figure out how to get this done, so that when the time comes, we'll be in better shape to say, maybe we'll be able to take 10 or 15% off of this or whatever, and we'll start being able to shrink the size of government. We'll see. Maybe we can shrink the deficit.
I think we come back a lot more effective out of this, and I think that. What did they pass? I mean, it helps a little on the edges, and for the most part, it's what we have.
Right. Okay. School lunch. You mentioned this a little bit earlier. I just thought, so here's all that healthy eating, all those rules that came into effect under Michelle Obama. So now they're going to be eased up. Waivers are going to be granted more easily, so kids can actually eat a little bit more of what they want to eat. I mean, the school lunch program, they were hurting.
This was a catastrophe. This was government overreach on steroids. And the right thing happened here. That thing alone, I would have commercials of that the entire 2020 cycle. We're the ones who saved school lunch, because what they did was to create lunches that the kids, I mean, they're not getting childhood obesity because they're not getting lunch. They're getting stuff they don't want. And like what they do, like, because my kids get it, okay? So you say it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's a small piece of bread, and they take off the crust. So it's like, I mean, this is your sandwich, right? That's lunch. This and an apple. Okay, you don't like an apple, then there's nothing crunchy. There's nothing. It doesn't even like complement work. Like when you have you have meat and potatoes, right? So those are complementary things, right? That it doesn't even try to achieve that. It's just like, give them a bunch of diet stuff and just cram it in their face and make them eat it. And the kids are like, we're not eating it. You're giving me 3 things I don't like and 1 thing I sort of like, so I'll eat that and be hungry till the end of the day. And you have, if your problem is like you have here in Montgomery County, you have a lot of people who are hungry, come to school hungry, not going to get supper, right? And you're saying that the way to help them is to cut the calories of their lunch, because on the theory that otherwise, there won't be you can eliminate childhood obesity. I mean, come on. The whole thing was stupid from the start. And if you want to have some little federal office that hands out best practices or whatever, that's one thing. But the total right thing happened there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking it's not quite the same thing, but I went to McDonald's the other day. My grandkids were in town and ordered a Happy Meal. And I have to admit, I hadn't ordered a Happy Meal forever and ever. And then they're like, so what do you want with that? Do you want, if you don't want the fries, you can have the yogurt, the apple. All of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, now I've got 21 choices, it seems like this, and then we substituted the apple juice for the soda, but he didn't tell us the apple juice costs more than the soda did or whatever. There's an upcharge, which was fine, but it was just like, all I wanted was a Happy Meal for my grandkids. I didn't need to have to sit there. Plus, the guy had such a thick accent. My daughter and I were like, what did he just say?
Yeah.
On top of that, we're like, this is just impossible. This is so frustrating.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Quickly moving on here. ESPN's Linda Cohn got interviewed on WABC radio, mentioning, which surprised me. I'd like to do it, but I admire her, mentioning kind of how the politics have had an effect at ESPN.
It's a story, and people on the right are pushing it. Hey, they got liberal, and they're getting their comeuppance because of it. I think that's she said what she said was that some percentage of it. I think that's accurate. I don't know how big a percentage of it is. I mean, their basic thing was they overpriced themselves. When they had the customers over a barrel, they put it to them. And now they don't have the customers. The leverage has changed, and so there's a big slide down. They had extra money. They promised a lot of people a lot of money, and so now you're having to get rid of a lot of those people. And I'm not sure what the criteria was for who they laid off, but they kept some people that I didn't understand their contribution, and they let go some people who I totally understood their contribution.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason from our standpoint as sports fans or people in terms of how they did that. There are a lot of people that are left behind right now that really don't deserve the jobs versus a lot of people that were cut on this. But what happened for me for ESPN, the politics play a role with things, but that's on the conservative side mainly. And it gets a lot of people angry. But ESPN, they thought this gravy train was going to run forever.
Right.
They kept bidding more and more money for programming, for events, figuring that all we have to do is just charge more. Well, we've reached that limit.
Right.
Cord cutting and a lot of other things.
Right.
It's not like that anymore. It's almost a little bit like when we talked about Venezuela. They bet the farm on this, and they didn't really have another plan. Oh, what happens if the customers decide to not subscribe to cable
need TV, or
they don't
they
need it? What you do now?
Right. You're not forced to take ESPN as part of your cable package anymore, and in fact saves you money not to. And also, I mean, they kind of got, the other thing that happened to them is, there's these regional networks. Like, what do you need them for this time of year? The Wizards are not on there. The Nats aren't on there. What are you tuning in for? During the college sports season, they have a lot more value. Yeah. But once college sports is over, I mean, I don't care about soccer. Yes, they show a baseball game, but, they're not. They probably are not showing your team, right? So. The programming they bought was probably not the right programming, and now it's like everybody's watching their own team.
All right, I'm going to jump to this and put these two together. The People's Climate March we had just this weekend, and then can put that in conjunction with Bret Stephens being hired by the New York Times, and he angered their readers with his climate change column.
First of all, Bret Stephens, is barely on the conservative side of the. You can't really call him a liberal, but you really can't really call him a conservative either. But the thing that struck me about this is, the Times readers seem shocked that these views were ever given a hearing. Their objection is, what are you talking about? There's no global warming, and it's not a complete danger to mankind, and we're almost dead now, and probably will be tomorrow. What do you mean that's not true or in question? And it's like, it shows like how unaware they are of the debate and where the debate is. And I talk to people about this all the time, and it's like, do you realize that the IPCC has backed off claiming that carbon causes global warming because they know the actual scientists who study this stuff know they no longer can prove that, or if they ever could, So why is that? Why don't you understand that? And they're shocked that this talk is even still occurring,
Yeah, well, I just want to throw in my 2 cents on this whole People's Climate March, which was that I was flying back from the NRA meeting in Atlanta on Saturday morning, and I'm sitting at the airport in Atlanta, and I'm looking over, and there's a middle-aged woman and a younger, probably her son, longer hair, and they're sitting around waiting for the flight to board. But she was actually sitting there and making signs, and then she started taking pictures of the signs, and this was, it was Earth, and it says she's dying, and I'm thinking, I know exactly where you're going and what you're going to be doing. But they were sitting in first class. So I love the carbon neutral version of the People's Climate Marchers, that they all fly in on big airplanes to come to this thing to save the planet.
Right.
Good going.
And make a complete mess.
Yeah, right. They leave a mess behind, which our side doesn't.
Always, tragedy of the commons with these guys. Whose job is it to clean up? If you go, like you say, Tea Party, right? The Tea Party, because we look at it's our responsibility.
Right.
It's not society or government or some big entity that someone else pays for, right? It's me. If I want the climate clean, I do something about it. If I want, lower taxes, I do something about it, right? So when we leave our rally, it's like, who made that mess? I did. So whose job is it to clean it up? My job, right? Their thing is like, I wasn't a part of any of this, so, someone else do it.
Right. All right. We're running short of time. Let's do 2 minutes.
There's some reports starting to come out that need to be paid attention to. The nuclear plant in Japan, Fukushima. Apparently, some of that radiation has gotten into the Pacific Ocean, and there's starting to be some fish caught with high radiation levels and so forth, and it threatens the entire ocean. I mean, there's no limit to how far that goes. Something you'll start to be hearing a whole lot more about.
All right, I'm going to close with Jim DeMint leaving Heritage. No, I'm not. I'm sensitive to that now. Actually, I just want to end today's show with just a short tribute to my mother, who passed away last week. Had suffered for many years from dementia. 97 years old, remarkable woman. Survived the atomic bomb in Nagasaki. So for those that think that everybody gets wiped out and radiation was really bad and everything, that she lived 97 years, 97 and a half years almost. So she was a tremendous woman. But I'm glad that she's reunited with my father, and I appreciate that you came out for the funeral service.
Yeah.
So.
The Trump ad views 784,000.
Oh, well, here we go. Trump ads are up to 784,000 views on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm sure CNN helped that a lot. All right, so we're out of time. Thanks a lot for joining with us this week for the Bias Buzz, and we will see you again next week.